Welcome to another review on It's Only Electric. This is Honda's first mainstream fully electric car. It's the Honda Ny1, or as it says on the boot, Ny1. A complicated name, but this is a fully electric version of the HR-V, but built on a totally new platform developed for only electric cars by Honda. Let's look into some details. Here it's foggy on the inside of the window. So measuring 4.4 meters, has a wheelbase of 2.7 meters and weighs 1,655 kilograms. So it can be considered a light car for being fully electric. Driving on the front wheels only, delivering 204 horsepower, 310 Newton meters of torque, does 0 to 100 in 7.6 seconds and has a top speed of 160 kilometers per hour. So the battery pack on this car is a NMC battery pack with a gross capacity of 68.8 kilowatt hours and a net capacity of almost 62 kilowatt hours, delivering a total WLTP range of 414 kilometers. And when it comes to the frontal design, it's a very Honda-esque. Headlights, top part, daylight running lights. The bottom part is the headlight units as such. And you see the fog lights are on, very lowly placed, gives the car a good look. And a closed grille, bumper camera for park assistance support. And this is not only a closed grille, it's also the charge port. And on top of the charge port, you have the charging lights, the charge indicating lights. Lights up in different colors. For instance, when charging, it lights up in blue colors, blinking in different speeds depending on the charge speed currently active. As he says, Type 2 connector. DC charging, has a top speed of 78 kilowatts and can do 10 to 80% in 42 minutes according to Honda. And we're going to test that soon, so this video will also include a cold weather charge test, so stay tuned for that. When it comes to home charging, it has 3-phase support and a top speed of 11 kilowatts. Equipped with 18-inch wheels, in this case extra equipped with black rims, not standard, 245/45 all around, and in this case driving on Pirelli Zero Ice studless winter tires. I don't know if you have noticed that, but the car looks a lot higher than it actually is, because underneath the car you have the battery pack sticking out as a big bulging thing. Looks like the battery pack is just put up and bolted on afterwards. A bit strange design, but I guess the main reason for that is to make the car look more SUV-ish. Let's look at the rear design elements of the car. A light bar, LED light bar, looks really good, illuminates nicely during night, goes through the whole rear segment of the car. Underneath that, a newly developed logotype. So Honda is really trying to change their image on the new electric lineup. This specific car is equipped with the advanced package. It's the highest spec version. So let's look at the boot. Integrated kick sensor. I have a hard time activating these on all cars actually. Now it worked. So 361 liters as a total boot capacity. Attached cargo cover to the lid, really smartly designed, easy to remove if you don't want it. 2 levels here, so a lot of extra space underneath for storing cables, etc. This can also be stowed away 1 level down, but you want to have it on the highest level to keep the floor as flat as possible and without any loading lip at all. Foldable seats into 60 and 40. It doesn't come with a tow hitch and doesn't have any frunk. A cool feature is this button, and it's kind of a leave button, so if you leave the car it will automatically close the boot. Let's test if that works. Yeah, it did. So when I leave the car, it senses that and closes the boot automatically. That is a really smart function, and I haven't seen it on any other car yet. Let's check the back seat, and as you see, there is no handle integrated into the door. It's hidden here up in the black corner. So to the back seat, and this is one of the more surprising areas in a positive way, because it's a lot more room here than it looks like from the outside. I mean, if you see here, my legs, my knees are not touching the front seat, and my feet are really easy to squeeze underneath the front seat. And this seat is actually adjusted after my positioning, and I'm 193 centimeters tall, or 6'4". So I'm fairly tall, but can still sit behind myself in such a small car. That's impressive. Another good thing is the headroom. There is a great amount of headroom here, at least at the outer positions. And as you see, I'm stretching out and still not touching the roof. I can squeeze in 1.5 finger between my head and the roof line. So that's really good. I mean, you can probably withstand longer trips as a grown-up in this back seat, and that's good for such a small car. Integrated ambient lighting also goes through the back. I always like when they do that. I mean, normally a lot of manufacturers tend to avoid adding luxury things like ambient lighting at the back, but in this case the materials is almost the same as in the front seat, and the ambient lighting is adding to the feel to the back seat. And when it comes to the seats, they are soft and supporting, and actually not that lowly placed either. So I'm really surprised by the comfort here in the back seat. I mean, my thighs are not really getting the support they need, but better than most cars actually. So that's good. This one though doesn't feel premium. I mean, it's good to have the armrest. It's nice. It does what it needs to do, but it almost feels like it's broken. I mean, there's no supporting function. It just sits there on top of the mid-seat section. Not that premium, huh? And when it comes to convenient features, you have the mid-console with 2 manual air vents, adjustable for each passenger. Underneath there you have 2 USB-C ports, and like a small trash bin underneath there for storing things. So 2 fairly big pockets on the rear backrests of the front seats. A cup holder integrated into the armrest on the doors. No pockets underneath there. 2 cup holders on the mid armrest. Otherwise, limited storage possibilities here at the back seat. Let's jump into the front and see how that feels. This car is equipped with the advanced package. That's the highest trim level. That gives you panoramic glass roof with a sunshade, manually operated for the frontal part, and for the rear part there is a manually addable sunshade stored in the boot. A premium sound system, a powered liftgate, and the Park Pilot Assist system. So when it comes to the interior, fit and finish and materials, on top of the dashboard is hard plastic. Just underneath there is manually adjustable air ventilations. In the 2 corners there is knobs for adjusting the flow towards the windows. So that's nice. 2 integrated screens, one 10.25 inch instrument cluster, nicely placed just in front of the steering wheel. A wide screen with nice and tidy graphics, easy to operate and easy to understand. The big screen, central screen, vertical aligned 15-inch screen, divided into 3 parts, 3 virtual parts. So the top part is for navigation, but also for the backup camera. So you can actually activate the backup camera by clicking at the knob on the left stalk. You can toggle 2 different views, and then with a 3rd press you will go back to the navigation. So backup camera, illustrations, navigation, but that's also the part showing Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and that's wired, no wireless support for that. The lower part, or the mid section, is actually the media section, and also kind of a browser for all the menu items, the car menus, settings, Wi-Fi hotspot functionality, DAB radio, system updates, etc. You can also download applications. My favorite menu here is the Power Flow. Shows you whilst driving how the car generates energy when it generates, when it regenerates, etc. So the lower part shows and controls the climate control. And that's always the case. So climate control at the bottom with seat heating at the 2 front seats, 2 zone climate controls, sync button, AC on and off. Yeah, you understand it. It's very easy to operate. So the screen layout takes a bit of time to get used to, but after that it feels logical and they're really utilizing the whole area of the screen. Underneath the screen there's actually 3 different hardware buttons, one for hazard lights, one for defrosting the front and rear. Underneath the screen there is a 12-volt outlet with 180 watt of peak power delivery, one USB-A port for data transfer and one USB-C port for charging. And left to the power station there is a Qi charger for charging your phone wirelessly. You can manually turn it off or turn it on by pressing the hardware button just next to the charger. The midsection consists of the gear selector, a very differently designed gear selector in this case, with the park button, reverse, you pull it towards you, neutral is on top, and drive is the closest to the driver. Takes a bit time to get used to, but I think it's a clever integration, looks tidy and nice. Also with included ambient lighting framing in the buttons in a nice way. Drive mode selector, you have 3 different drive modes, sport, normal and econ. So just underneath the drive modes you have the parking brake and the brake hold function, and next to that the automatic park assist functionality. So you press that one when you're passing or hovering around on a parking lot, it will find the parking spots for you and you can initiate a self-parking functionality. Next to that you have adaptive dual cup holder, very deep, so if you have like shorter mugs, this one will not work, especially if you're using those paper ones, drinking coffee, then the lid will go off and it will fall down all the way down to the bottom in that one. So maybe not the best cup holders for smaller cups in this case. Let's move on to the steering wheel. And steering wheel also includes the new logotype, the Honda H, now in white and black only, so monochrome setup. A tidy steering wheel with the horn in the middle and 2 control areas as usual. The good thing though that I prefer is to have the media controls to the left. So to the left you can control the media, shuffle the songs, raise the volume, etc. But you also navigate the left part of the screen. You have some different alternatives for what you want to show on that side. To the right you have the drive assist functionality like lane keeping, distance keeping, etc. And the addition with the advanced package also gives you the ability for heating the steering wheel. So there is real leather to be able to persist the heat from the heating element inside the steering wheel, and you operate that by switching that on or off directly on the steering wheel, so you don't need to find that function within the menu system. 2 paddles for regenerative braking, 3 different levels, and that's something you adjust during your drive and nothing that consists and stays for the whole ride. In front of the steering wheel you have a power button and a instrument cluster brightness function. Very big button for such a small function, but I know it's maybe because of legacy. I would have preferred to have that on the screen instead and only. And for you that have watched my videos before, I'm not a fan of power buttons because I always forget to switch it off before jumping out the car and start beeping. So then I need to re-enter, turn it off, exit the car, lock it and leave. Let's move on. When it comes to the door sides and the materials on the doors, there's soft touch here at the top. Also here with fake leatherette inlays, really nice touching feel to the lever for opening the door. The ambient lighting follows as in the whole rest of the car. The control panel for the windows, for the side view mirrors, etc. And one thing that I like with this car is actually the size of the side view mirrors. They're really high compared to other cars and gives you a really good view backwards. And when it comes to storage, there is a small part of storage here inside the mid console, not that big at all. You have nothing underneath here. You have the deep cup holders, of course. Also some small pockets inside the doors where you can store at least one big bottle. And you also have the glove box, traditional glove box. So limited storage here at the front. It's time taking this car for a ride. I'm gonna start with a range test. So this video will be a bit different. I will include the range test and a charging test and also a cabin noise test in this video. So everything in the same video, and at the same time I will try to explain the driving dynamics as good as possible. Let's go. So I'm on the first stretch on my range and consumption test, sitting inside a Honda Ny1. That's apparently how it should be pronounced, not Honda Ny1. It's a complicated name. I don't know the meaning of it, but it's something about the new N platform. First car, I don't know, something like that. So let me explain about the concepts and the test I'm doing here now. I'm driving a test cycle, my own test cycle that's 80 kilometers long and has an average speed of 93 kilometers per hour. So the speed limits is set to between 50 all the way up to 110 kilometers. Currently I'm driving on a 110 kilometers per hour stretch, and I have put, let's see, 20 kilometers behind, and the average consumption until now is 20.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. I always stick to certain rules to be able to create a result that's as consistent as possible. So rule number 1, set the AC to auto and 20 degrees. Rule number 2 is to always activate and utilize eco mode if available. And on this car there is 3 different drive modes: sport, normal and econ. I have just activated econ. I have been driving on that mode ever since the start. So it seems to be limiting the AC a bit, at least the AC output, because you see here it's foggy on inside of the window, at least on the passenger side. The other windows looks fine. But to be totally honest, it has been very cold until today. Today it's 2 degrees Celsius. So it's getting a bit hotter, and therefore all the snow is melting and it's getting very moist and wet outside. So that's probably the reason for that. So both cold and wet, this will not be a good number, but at least the test will show you one of the worst scenarios you can achieve with this car. So let's just talk about Honda's sensing system. And Honda's sensing system is their solution for autonomous driving, park assist, etc. So the car is equipped with several cameras, a lot of USS sensors and a radar, and it works the same way as a lot of other systems. You activate it by pressing the buttons on the steering wheel, and you can adjust the speed, raise it or decrease it depending on how fast you want to drive. Now set to 110 kilometers per hour. It actually keeps me in the lane in a very good way by using the radar and the cameras in the front and also the USS sensors. It illustrates the cars in front of me and surrounding me as the Tesla autopilot does, and it's also nagging about touching the steering wheel, so it's also sensing the torque from your hands, or the weight from your hand that creates torque in the middle of the steering wheel. So it keeps me fine and stable in the middle of the lane, no problem at all. And when I try to switch the lane, I'm gonna switch back to the right side now and see how it behaves. Let's just pause this car. So now I start blinking and it actually disengages the lane keeping assist, and now when I'm inside the new lane it reactivates the lane keep assist in a nice way. And for highways this seems to be a perfectly fine system. It will really help you to relax on longer trips. So let me try to express my feeling when driving this car. It's a very calm experience, but it's at the same time a bit old school. I mean, it is a front-wheel drive car. It's a bit heavy for being front-wheel drive. 204 horsepower, 310 newton-meters of torque. I mean, the power itself is sufficient and enough actually for driving it okay. I mean, it does 0 to 100 in 7.6 seconds. So it is not a slow car, but it's a bit unusual to build front-wheel drive cars these days. At least front-wheel drive fully electric cars, to be clear. Most of the cars are normally rear-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. And I get the point with that, because I have been struggling whilst driving on snow with the front-wheel drive. So front-wheel drive would not be my choice for this kind of a heavy car, not during winter time at least. But one thing I like with this car being front-wheel drive is that I actually hear and can engage a bit more and relate a bit more to the motor, the electric motor at the front, because it gives a kind of a pleasant sound that's get more pronounced when accelerating a bit harder, and also when getting some wheel spin, etc. It's kind of a nice sounding sound. I like it, and it gives expression of some kind of old school combustion engine, but in a very small format. So I think the front wheel drive motor in this case adds to the driving fun, because it makes the car sound a bit more engaging than having it at the rear. And I think that's the only positive thing with having the motor at the front. And that beeping sound, by the way, is the new European law regarding speed limits. So when I pass the speed limits, so now it's 70, when I travel in like 72 for a couple of seconds, it will start beeping. So now I'm traveling 69, let's accelerate a bit, 72, gonna beep soon. Yeah. So when I travel and drive a bit over the speed limit for a couple of seconds, it starts beeping. It gives me 3 or 4 beeps, then it stops. And then if I keep holding that speed, it will continue blinking and give me another sound later on. And I haven't found any way to turn it off actually. And that's really annoying, because on most other cars, it's possible to turn it off. As you see, it's beeping. The good thing though is that the beeping is not that annoying. I have heard much worse sounds than this. So this sound is actually nicer to the ears. If beeping sounds can be that, I'm not sure. So I have been traveled 75 kilometers, average consumption 20.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. Current state of charge actually dropped down to 15%, and that seems to be the percentage that the car actually starts warning you. So I have just got the first warning, and it's showing me a big icon, orange one, that I should plug in and charge the car. But still, no limitations when it comes to the power, and everything seems and feels as usual. But I will try to drive it down to 10% just after the consumption test, and immediately hit a fast charger and see how quick this car will be able to charge. So I needed to relocate because I couldn't get the first charger to work. I tried 2 different chargers at that site, but there seems to be something wrong with the handshake for this current car and that charger. I'm not sure if it's due to the chargers or due to the car. So I relocated and have plugged it into another charge network and another fast charger with a peak power of 300 kilowatts, 800 volts or 400 volt depending on what you need. So no limitation for this car. The car is the limitation in this case. So now current state of charge 24%. So I have been charging for 9 minutes and 10 seconds, and the peak speed until now has been 68 kilowatts. I mean, that's lower than the specified 78, so 10 kilowatts under that, but it seems to hold that speed now. 60 kilowatts of charge speed at 25%. So it seems to be holding that speed, hopefully all the way up to 80%. But let's see about that. The car still says 46 minutes left. So let's jump back to the consumption. The final consumption actually ended up at 20.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. But the problem is that the car seems to over-report the distance by 3%. That means that I need to add 3% to the consumption, and it ends up at 21.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. That translates into a full range for the full battery pack of 61.9 kilowatt hours of net capacity of 292 kilometers. And that's actually 71% of the stated WLTP range of 414 kilometers. So 71% of the stated WLTP range. I mean, but this is during bad conditions, 292 kilometers. You can achieve a lot more range than this during summertime. So remember that. 2 degrees outside, snow, wet roads, mushy roads, so really bad conditions. And this car doesn't have any heat pump. So this is probably as worse as it can get. So currently state of charge 37%. It says that I have 40 minutes left up to 80%, and I've been charging for almost 18 minutes now. So it seems like it will take just under an hour for charging it from 10 to 80%. Finally, 80%. The total charge time took 45 minutes and 7 seconds. That's really close to the specified time of 42 minutes, a bit slower. And I discovered that the car actually cold gated the first initial part of charging. So it held a speed between 60 and 65 kilowatts all the way up to 35%. Then it suddenly jumped up to 70 and all the way up to 74 kilowatts as a top charge speed. And that's really close to the top charge speed specified by Honda themselves. So cold gating the first bit, and there is no functionality for preheating the battery, nothing that I can activate manually, and I navigated to the charge station, still didn't preheat the battery, optimizing the battery charge curve. So doesn't seem to be any function for that, but it still got the battery up to the right temperature after a while. But don't forget that this is after 1.5 hours of driving the car, so you will probably always cold gate a bit during cold weather. But this is the charge curve, and as you see, started a bit slow, moves up to 74 kilowatts, then tapers down towards 50 at the end, and actually really stable at the end. So the last 10% was like 49.50 all the way up to 80%, and before that around 60 kilowatts. So a fairly straight charge curve with some tapering towards the end. That's the charging. So let's look at the cabin noise of the Honda. Different speeds, 50, 70, 90 and 110 kilometers per hour. And here is the result. So compared to other cars in the segment, like the Volvo XC40 Recharge, the Honda is actually a tad more silent. It's also more silent than the Tesla Model Y, but it's a bit more noisy than the BMW iX3. So there you have it, a fairly silent car for its class. I have been driving this car for a couple of days now, almost a week of driving, and I will try to summarize my experience, my view, and my thinking about the Honda Ny1. It has been like a roller coaster. At a start, I was really disappointed because when I looked at the specs, I really didn't get the concept of the car. And after a while, I started to get the point with the car, but I'm still not really convinced. I mean, it's like going to a party and everyone is dancing on the dance floor. You're sitting down and you're about to join. And to be able to get some attention, you need to do something special. You can't just go up and dance. you need to like go in with a lot of energy to get recognized, or maybe dance in a very special way, or dance very good, or have special clothes, or be noisy. So something to take attention from the others already dancing, to be able to join that team. You need to bring something to the table. That's what I'm trying to say. And I really don't think that this car is doing that. Makes sense for current Honda owners that's used to the brand and loyal to the brand, shifting over to a full electric car. But this is not the car that expands the brand Honda. It will not, because this is not the person that jumps into the dance floor and gives the others some extra energy. No, because as I said, it doesn't bring anything special to the table. The range, 414 kilometers, small battery pack. The efficiency is not great. The interior space is good, given its size. The boot space, no frunk. Front wheel drive, 204 horsepower, 300 Newton meters of torque. Everything is like fairly neutral. 4 or 5 years ago, this would have been a great package. Today, unfortunately, it's not anymore. I mean, there's a lot of good brands on the market already. The competition is stiff now. It's hard. It's hard to bring out new electric cars. You need to do it in a good way. You need to create cars with good specs, agile cars that bring something to the market. And this one doesn't bring anything for people that's not loyal to the Honda brand. Because I would have got the point if the price point was totally different. But I mean, 500,000 Swedish crowns, 47,000 euros for this car. I mean, that's not cheap. There is a lot cheaper alternatives or similarly priced alternatives on the market that's delivering more and better functionality. I think that's what I wanted to say. I think it's good that Honda really tries, and I hope that the upcoming lineup that they're going to reveal is a lot better. I think so. I believe so. This feels more like a test or more like a thing they needed to do to buy some time for introducing the real cars later. I hope so. But that's just my point of view. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us have a good discussion. So I guess that's it. And as I always say, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.